and I will see them. And we are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and various
Amazing.
other places. Dr. Angela Tewari, I was just saying, consultant dermatologist, brilliant, knows all about everything to do with skin, obviously. And the first time I met you was when we were doing a really lovely podcast with the Skin Diary people.
That's
and
right.
we went out afterwards because it was my birthday. And so we talked about all sorts of things, including menopause, perimenopause, and things like that. And now here we are to talk about all of the horrible things that happen to your skin when you hit perimenopause and menopause.
Bless you. Such a kind introduction. Thank you, Fiona. And it was amazing to do that podcast with you. We talked about lots of things skin related, but really also focusing on the perimenopausal period, which really can, for some people, start from the age of 35. Not everyone, it's very rare, but generally it's in your mid 40s, a period of change. And we're going to touch on those skin changes that can be so troublesome, and what can happen, why it happens, and then some tips to deal with it. So really looking forward to doing that with you. But yeah, we managed to celebrate your birthday that evening, as well as the podcast.
Exactly, and which means that you have seen my body physically, because a lot of these things, people actually say, we talk a lot about collagen loss and getting older and that kind of stuff, but let's start with some of the things that people don't really talk about. And one of them is the other, which actually I asked you about for my upcoming book, I think, was the under boobs. You get that point where you probably don't know, but they're women of my age will often say, I can't wear my bra. I come home, I can't wait to get it off. I rip it off as soon as I walk in the door. What is going on there? I know personally, I knew you because you've seen me, I don't have giant boobs, but even I have got to that point where just the amount of sweat under them is causing me issues. What the hell is wrong with boobs?
I mean, I'm just so grateful we're able to talk about this really, and actually really delving into it. It's something that really affects so many women. So what you're describing is something known as a hot flash. And essentially when you get that imbalance of your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, even during the perimenopausal period, you have a change in your basal temperature. And your body recognizes this and it finds it difficult to regulate it. And you get this hot flash, which is essentially a massive sweat, and you can get it during the day. And that massive sweat can happen suddenly in random times, that can actually be quite troublesome if you're in a social situation. And it's in those periods that are the warmest parts of your body, essentially. So your neck, your breast area, your armpits, your groin even. But if you get these flashes, shall we say, of sweating over long periods of time, so say overnight, for example, and they're a bit more grumbling and you wake up essentially with flooded sheets, that's known as a night sweat. So you have a hot flash, which is a sudden increase in sweating in response to this change in your body temperature that we get with perimenopause into the menopause. And both can be quite upsetting even. So the hot flash is more temporary, so it's short-lived, immediate reaction, can happen during the day, during the night time. But your hot flush, which is this low grumbling change and amount sweating that happens throughout the night, is when you then wake up in the early hours and you feel like you've been sweating all night, which you probably have actually. So
why does that then in the end make it uncomfortable under your boobs?
Because of the pressure effect. So wearing bras, wearing underwiring with bras actually has more of what we call an occlusive effect. So if you are sweating, that sweat can't evaporate anywhere and it's stuck there under the skin. The only way it can go is down, and then that feeling of trickling and that sweat moving down the body. And if you're wearing clothing, or if it's at nighttime, you're having sheets on you, it's difficult for that sweat to go places. Under the armpits, in the groin, again, if you're wearing trousers, nylon trousers, ideally we should be wearing cotton clothing. But we like a little bit of elastase in our clothing to give it that stretch material, and that doesn't really allow evaporation of sweat. So it really feels like it's on the skin in those closed areas. Is it what? Sorry.
Is it getting thrushy? Is this where we're heading to?
So, is it getting thrushy? So, thrush will affect all women, and that is candida. So, that's when the skin gets a yeast overgrowth, and it can be red, sore, itchy is a big symptom. And if you provide a warm, moist environment for anything, it's going to grow. It's going to say, "Hey, this is great. I love it here," and you're going to get increased amounts of that. So that's when the yeast or when the thrush can come along. It's not that you're more likely to get thrush, but it's just that if you're more sweaty, and that could be if you're someone that goes to the gym a lot and you sweat a lot at the gym. So it's not just women that are sweating for various hormonal reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to the point actually where I have to live on. It's made a huge difference because it actually got to the point where I thought I cannot go on this way with these.
Yeah, yeah, it's really tough.
The discomfort is, it was awful. I mean, you just literally could not. I mean, I don't know how many different types of bras I've bought that have all,
Mm.
been thrown out, and basically in the end, I sort of end up living in sports bras, really. But I thought, okay, there must be something, and it didn't look bad. Like the skin didn't look bad, but it was always sore. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to try Caniston under the boobs, and within
Yeah.
6 weeks, it was a completely different story, completely gone.
Well, I was about to say actually, because the other thing is, a little bit of an estradiol patch, which we'll come on to, but things that can just, if you're more likely to have these yeast overgrowth sessions, shall we say, so you've still got the spores there, having something like Caniston or even like ketoconazole shampoo as a body wash once a week, even live yogurt. So Greek yogurt has lactobacillus, can actually be very helpful as well. Not everyone's cup of tea, of course. But yeah, I'm glad that the Caniston worked. I mean, that, for the symptoms can be such a savior, can't it?
Yeah.
And how often were you using that?
I mean, it's got to be like a giant red rash. You see all the, the really dramatic pictures. But
Oh, bless
obviously, it
you.
doesn't have to look bad to actually be painful. You mentioned there the groin as well, because I get a lot of women saying at night that literally they have a flood coming down their leg.
Oh, yeah,
Is
bless them.
there anything that they can do about that? Are there other things as well, like uncontrolled blood pressure, or I don't know what else that could contribute to those things? And are there things that can stop that sweat?
Well, first of all, don't sleep naked is a really important thing. When I have
Mm.
women coming to me saying, "Oh, I'm gonna make sure I don't have any clothes on me, and I'll sleep with that." But actually, you do need a bit of cotton clothing that can be actually more comfortable for you, reduce friction in any of those sort of important areas of our body, but also help to absorb some of that sweat. First of all, so light cotton clothing, light cotton sheets, a fan. Can you keep a fan on during the evening? And actually, it's normal. It happens. And it's, first of all, being more feeling that it's actually something that I shouldn't worry about. And it happens to a lot of us. And how are the best ways to control that? Also, things like putting on little hormonal patches at night time. Certain ones don't agree with everyone, but I am very au fait with that, and we can always touch on that later anyway when we're chatting.
Mm. The What about things that, like, I mean, if it really is an issue for you, they've got those antiperspirants that sort of stop you from sweating. Can they be useful in certain spots, or even Botox for hyperhidrosis and things like that? Can they be useful?
I mean, it really depends on how bad the sweating is. And if it's something that you find that it's really affecting your night's sleep, I'd probably think about things that are like wipes that contain certain what we call anticholinergics that can stop sweating temporarily. Things like Botox, aluminium hydroxide perspirants, they can be irritating. So they're developed for armpit skin. Using it at other parts of the body probably wouldn't be my first go-to, but there are things like sweat block, for example, rather than the perspirants with fragrance that we use for body odor, that could be an option. So having these sweat block roll-ons or things like glycopyrronium wipes, they are very difficult to get hold of now. So as much as I say this, the one that I'm thinking of has actually now gone out of stock. But temporary measures like that could be quite helpful.
I didn't know there was wipes like that. So basically, they're not like an aluminium thing that sort of blocks the pores and stops you from sweating. What do they? How do
So
they
the
work?
The one I'm thinking of is known as secure body wipes, and actually they're used for patients with something called hyperhidrosis, so a condition where there's increased sweating, often due to emotional stimuli, so in social situations, and it's very specific areas, often the armpits, the hands, the feet, but sometimes whole body areas like the face, the back, and the chest. So it really depends on the extent of sweating, and in those situations, in those patients, we do have certain types of tablets that can halt the sweating in the body and also reduce what we call secretions or in other parts of the body. So sometimes you can get dry eyes, dry mouth with that. So if you are going to think along those lines and you want to seek help from your GP, it's definitely something that's off license. So it's definitely something to be aware about, but more for conditions known as hyperhidrosis is what we use that for.
Yeah, so that would probably actually be really helpful for people, because I mean, you know, a lot of these women who are saying this are on HRT, so they've got that patch on, but yet they're still having this incredible groin flood at night, which can just
Yeah.
be really irritating.
I
That's
mean, hugely irritating, hugely irritating. And I think it can really affect quality of life if it's happening several times during the week or if it's happening every night. Definitely one to talk about it more, and really, you know, it's great that we're doing this live together.
Yeah, I had it for a little while, and actually it got much better when A, I cut down on alcohol, and B, got my blood pressure under control, which is why actually I asked, because I know that they don't normally correlate the two, but getting the blood pressure under control seemed to make a huge difference. They just stopped.
Yeah, well, controlling for other factors. So, you know, blood pressure, stress, you know, making sure you've got a normal vitamin D level and can presumably can help in these situations. But I didn't know that. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that's something a bit more research we need. The other thing that people find when they hit perimenopause, menopause is two things: just incredibly itchy skin, and then that feeling of ants crawling under the skin, the formication, not to be confused with fornication, which would be a lot more fun. So, why do we get itchy, and why do we feel like we have ants crawling under our skin?
It's a, you know, I don't think it's a very difficult question. I don't think we actually know the underlying reason. I mean, we say that there's an imbalance of your progesterone, your testosterone, and that imbalance gives you flares to not just temperature, emotional state, also various increased sensitization to the skin or decreased sensitization. But really, we don't know what exactly is causing this. I mean, presumably there'll be increase in various markers or neuromarkers in the skin. But I was looking for papers. I've seen lots of papers talking about the symptoms that are increased in the perimenopausal period. And there's an excellent paper looking at 20,000 women. And we know that rosacea is increased in these situations. Eczema can increase, melasma can increase. But really, when you look at the nitty gritty on these type of symptoms, no one's looking at the data. So it'd be useful to actually try and put this all together and try and develop some data and analyses on, you know, blood markers. Should we be taking blood samples during these symptoms to look and see what's going on? Because the answer is I can't tell you. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? We'll get to pigmentation and rosacea in a little while, but the other thing that drives people absolutely batty is hair loss. Hair growing in places where you don't want it, and losing it in places where you do. Now, this is really complicated. What do you see mostly when women come in the door going, "Oh my God, I've hit perimenopause and I'm going bald"?
Yeah. I mean, that is a massive perimenopausal concern, and it's known as androgenetic alopecia, hormonal alopecia. It all means the same thing. And classically, female pattern hair loss is typically the vertex of the scalp. You see thinning there. And in men, it's slightly different. It presents more in the peri or the bitemporal region, and then the top of the scalp. And the hair density increases, sorry, it decreases, and the number of hairs that we get also decreases, and there's a generalized thinning of the scalp. And and then also in response to that, you'll get something known as hirsutism, where you have increased hair on the above the lip, on the chin, and these hairs are thickened. They're terminal hairs. They are unsightly, and they respond very well to various topical treatments and tablet treatments, and obviously laser treatments. And this is very common.
Didn't
So
it make you fair like me? I thought the lasers weren't all that effective on people who were sort of like fair like me.
Well, on me, they work a treat. So I always say, if you start getting them, start doing laser before your hair turns white, because as soon as the hair turns white, you need the pigment that is what we call the chromophore for some of these lasers. And as soon as the hair turns white, then it's not going to be a target. So you'll be stuck with them.
Yeah, great, because I am literally growing a beard. And when I say I'm growing a beard, I want you to think, I don't know if you know about Merv Hughes, the Australian cricketer who had the big lamb chops. Merge him with, Robert Downey Jr. when he had
Oh,
his...
bless you.
Literally, that's what I'm growing at the moment. So there you go.
Well, the Robert Downing Jr. perhaps is retractive, because it does come across there. It is that sort of area across on the face.
Yep, nothing more attractive that I could think of at the moment. Yes. So perimenopause and menopause are just literally the gifts that just keep on giving.
Yeah, but in your book, you go into not just the skin issues, but all the other, systemic or body issues as well that really are an issue. So, skin is obviously the biggest organ; it's the first manifestation, but not just the skin symptoms. There's so many other changes that are happening, aren't there?
Yeah, tell me about it. They are non-stop, which then leads us to things like starting off, I guess because we know that collagen levels drop, the skin gets thinner, and sun damage is also a factor in that, isn't it? That sort of accelerates collagen loss. But we have things that come along with that, like increases in pigmentation, and you mentioned rosacea and things like that as well. So why do we have this loss of collagen, this changes in skin texture and tone, changes in skin color, and then flare-ups of rosacea? Wrap all of that into one time.
I know we've got a 20-minute.
So I'm throwing it all in together.
Exactly. We've got a 20-minute slot, and I'm going to do my best to talk us through this. So you have sun-induced aging, so photoaging, and you have intrinsic aging. So that is the changes that happen in the body, typically on those non-sun exposed sites. So we'll see it on the abdomen, on the thighs, and sometimes on the back. And really, when we start going through the perimenopause period, and we start reducing the amount of estrogen that's naturally being produced in the body, it has an effect of reducing collagen 1 and also collagen 3. And collagen 1 is the main collagen in our dermis, and that gives us bounce, it gives us elasticity. And when we start losing it, we start getting a sagging of the skin. You also lose some elastin as well. And this is all just in response to the estrogen. Also, sun-induced damage can also affect this. And that's how we start getting the skin looking a bit thinner, potentially a little bit waxy in feeling. But on a positive note, if you do try and use a topical cream that contains estrogen, it can rejuvenate that. It can bring back that collagen 1 and collagen 3. Interestingly, according to the papers, on those sites that are not exposed to sunshine. So really, you'll see it not on the face, not on the neck, but on other body sites, which I think is very interesting. So you always need
the sun damage there, because we have people obviously around the world who are promoting this for people's faces non-stop and selling it at quite large rates. Put your vagina cream on your face and all of these sorts of things. But really, as you say, those studies really show that it performs better on areas that don't see the sun. And I can pretty much guarantee that every face has some sort of form of sun damage by the time you get to my age. The other thing about that is that we don't know if you're going to apply that amount of estradiol or estriol over your entire body, at what point do you need to add in a progesterone to protect your endometriosis? I think there are so many questions there that need to be answered that we just don't have answers to. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, also there's so much in skincare, new botanical ingredients, not just the actives that we know about. So, there's a huge amount of work going into new products. So I think it definitely will be a combination. But yeah,
let's take you back to the actives then that we do know about, that what could help, because it's not just faces, obviously it's bodies as well. And one of the things that I do want to touch on is the senile purpurea, that once we get that thin crepey skin across the body, we become much more prone to bruising, and people say, I bruise so easily these days.
Yeah.
Towards that slippery slope of the 80-year-old with the big purple patches. Topicals in skincare, not just for faces but for bodies, can they help with that? Help sort of slow down that crepiness of the skin on the body?
Yeah, definitely. And as you say this, I know this is a heart sink for a lot of us, and you might have heard it so many times, but I'm going to say it again: sunscreen. So using a broad spectrum sunscreen with a high SPF that will cover against UVA and UVB, and those that have a known UVA protection factor, and definitely if you're going to go for a high SPF, so something like 50, you're naturally going to have enough UVA cover. It's part of what we know as a broadband sunscreen, and really protecting us to the amount of sun that gets to us at any given time is really important, and that will really help with reducing down sun induced damage, which is increased fragility to some of the blood vessels in the skin, and that's why when you add pressure on the skin, or you maybe doing some gardening, or you get a scratch on the skin, you will notice bruising, and that's the increased fragility to our blood vessels. So by reducing the amount of sun exposure with a sunscreen, then that can be very helpful. But also things like retinoids, so using a tretinoin, 0.025%, for example, you can go a bit higher on the body. That we know will increase collagen production and will also help rejuvenate the skin as well. So
You get products like that? Are there some that actually for the body? I've never seen a vitamin A product for a body. Are they only prescription, or can you get them over the
So
counter?
I think increasingly we are seeing some products coming out now. So there are some body lotions that are vitamin A, that contain vitamin A. So I think that's definitely something that's on the cards. Perhaps not a tretinoin because that is prescribable, but definitely retinols, retinaldehyde. And now as we're getting more body lotions with different types of hydroxy acids, I think having a retinol or vitamin A is an excellent option as well to use on a regular basis.
Vitamin C and niacinamide, B3.
Yes, I'm a real fan of niacinamide, and really to try and for it to help with pigmentation, you are looking at a higher concentration, at least an 8%, 10%. That is more irritating on the skin, particularly on facial skin, and it can lead to irritant. Contact dermatitis can, in some cases, get skin very itchy here in between around the nose, around the mouth. That's basically where it settles down the product. And then over time, that can increase risk of perioral dermatitis. So I do like a high concentration, but just be mindful it can also be irritating. It's good for
Yeah.
acne. It can help reduce down new pigmentation that's formed. Perhaps not treat the pigmentation that's there, but definitely reduce down new pigmentation. It's one of my favourite products.
We had a question that came in actually about pigmentation from a lady who said she went out in the sun, she got sunburned, and now she's permanently red on the chest.
Oh,
Can
bless her.
can anything help that? Does she need laser for that, or any topicals that could help?
I think first of all, I'd say is it probably is accumulation of sun exposure. If it was one sunburn, and she's still red, say 3 to 4 weeks later, that could be a persistent tan. And in lighter skin types, it can be more of a redness as opposed to a pigmentation tan. But if it's from chronic sun exposure, then there are they could be skin condition we know as poikiloderma, which is in dermatology is because of chronic sun exposure. And I probably want her to be assessed first. And just look at the type of damage that's there before treatments. But definitely rejuvenation therapies are a good option.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, we all love the sun. I love the
We all
sun.
love the sun. I love the sun. I'm heading on holiday soon, so yeah, we all love the sun. It's it produces those positive endorphins in the body, and not just vitamin D production. It also there are studies that show that it can help reduce your blood pressure. It's but not something that we should use for pressure monitoring. So please, no one quote me on this. But it has a lot of positive effects, as well as obviously needing to be careful for sunburning. That is the issue that I don't want anyone to have sunburn.
No, exactly. I can imagine how happy you'll be when I come in to see you with all of my giant actinic keratoses and God only knows what else. You said it was for medicinal reasons.
Exactly. It's all my fault.
Exactly. It's all your fault. That whole 60 years of lying in the sun is all your fault. There you go. Brilliant. All right. Do you think we touched on the most important things? Because I know that you need to go. This was short and sharp.
Short and sharp, but any other questions, we'd both be delighted to answer them. But yeah, no, that was, and I guess the answer is for, the first, the sweaty boobs and groin. It's a tricky one. It's a really tricky one. And but I guess the first thing is it's your body's response to a change in your core temperature that's basically going berserk. And then it's not able to regulate it properly, and it does these massive sweating responses. So that's basically what it does. But you're right; it can go on for ages. So, but I like your little tip on the Canesten cream. I think that's a great option.
Huge. I think what is it? What's it called? Intertrigo, is that what it's called? The sort of condition of itchiness under the boobs or something.
Intertrigo, yeah. There's various causes of intertrigo. Yep, that is the overall name.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Any tips for flat words? I don't know what she means there. Any tip for flat words that have only appeared since the menopause? I don't know what the flat words are.
Flat worms or flat words? What
She's
was
got flat
that?
words written. Warts. Flat warts.
Flat warts. Flat warts. So I thought you said worms. I can give you lots of options for that, or not. So yeah, flat. So seborrheic sound like they're flat seborrheic keratoses. If they're under the breast, they do come up often in response to friction. So you can also get skin tags around the neck. Besides having them frozen off by one of us, or scraped off, there's not much we can do with those, I'm afraid. Sorry, but they're okay. They're all normal from the sounds of it.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, and always, of course, if you are in doubt, get them checked.
Yeah, so if they do change, so definitely the A, B, C, D, E criteria. So as much as me saying, look, they all sound normal, of course, you must look up the A, B, C, D, E criteria, where you look at changes in asymmetry, the border. So is it a flat, a regular border? Is it moth-eaten border? The color, look for any changes in color, if it's increasing in size or getting very different to all your other bits and bobs on the skin, definitely get them checked.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, I will let you go. If people want to find you, where do they find you, my love?
I am found on social media, so after this live, and by email, and looking forward to hearing some questions.
Yes, exactly. Brilliant. All right, I will let you go, and I will speak to you later, and I will end it here on Instagram as well. So basically, this will save, but then I'll post the nice looking one.
Okay.
So I will
Lots of love.
see you later. Take care.
Take care.
That
Bye.
one, and then you now too. Bye. Go on. End screen.